Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Nostalgia Trap. My name is David Parsons, and I'm very happy that you have sat down or perhaps stood up to listen to the podcast. This week, I have something special for you. I'm really happy and proud of the episode that I have to bring you today. I was able to come to a couple of different classes at LaGuardia Community College, taught by Professor Justin Rogers Cooper. Some of you who listened to my first podcast, Topical Fever, from last year might remember Justin Rogers Cooper from a few episodes, and I hope to have him back on the Nostalgia Trap. But today he was kind enough, and I think experimental enough as a teacher to let me come to his class and record his students as they kind of reflected on the end of the class that they just took, which was a class that's an English class. It's called English 220, I believe. But it's kind of an advanced level class that was about teaching and was about pedagogy and was designed to kind of have students reflect and learn about, teaching techniques and ostensibly to kind of guide them in the beginning career of being a teacher, or the beginnings of that career. So, I was able to sit down with probably about 15 different students, and what you'll hear is just a kind of uninterrupted stream of clips of me sitting with individual students. They'll introduce themselves, and they kind of tell me about what the class was about, how it affected their lives, and kind of what their thoughts on teaching are. And I kind of threw some questions and ideas back at them, and we ended up having an incredibly productive and fun time. So I hope you enjoy this stuff as much as I do. And I have another class that I sat down with that will be an episode in the future. So I hope you look out for that one too. But I had an awesome day sitting with Justin's students, and I learned a lot from them and from reflecting and thinking about Justin's class itself. I'd never really seen a class about teaching, and a bunch of really eager undergraduates figuring out what the next step in their lives will be and how teaching might fit into it. So I do hope you enjoy these. If you are looking for more Nostalgia Trap, you can go to iTunes and search Nostalgia Trap. You can go to nostalgiatrap.libsyn.com and find all of the episodes downloadable. Or you can go to Stitcher.com, which is a Stitcher radio network, and download an app that you can put on your phone or whatever device you've got, and you can take the Nostalgia Trap podcast and others with you. So I hope you check that out. And of course, go to the Facebook page and like the Nostalgia Trap for updates on new episodes and other stuff. I hope you enjoy this conversation, or this series of great conversations with the students of LaGuardia Community College in Long Island City, New York. Okay, so I don't know. You guys don't know much about me, I'm sure, or anything about me. But my wife works here at LaGuardia, so I come out here quite a bit. And this is a community that I have a lot of friends that work here. LaGuardia is I work at Brooke College. I'm a CUNY person too. So this place has a special resonance. I really like LaGuardia for a lot of different reasons. But I'm joined by my first guest, who's in Professor Rogers Cooper's class. What class is this, Professor?
This is English 220, the Seminar in Teaching Writing.
Maybe you could tell me a little bit about what the class is first.
This is a class that's mostly full of education majors and writing and literature majors, and it's a small class that looks at theories of pedagogy and theories of teaching writing and writing tutoring. And so this class has observed tutors in the Writing Center to sort of look at their strategies. We've read books on writing tutor strategies. We've tutored students ourselves. That's probably the most exciting thing about it.
Oh, you guys have really done all this? That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean,
That's a lot for a semester.
It's an intense semester, actually. Yeah. And it's been a great class. And the students, I really think, have risen to sort of the professional and scholastic challenge of helping other students here at LaGuardia with their writing. And we've just finished our final paper, which is called the case study, in which the students talk about their experiences tutoring and sort of reflect on it in a kind of higher order thinking sort of way by thinking through how it fits into their larger theories of education. So one of the questions I've been asking them all semester is, what should education do? What is it for? What do you want your students to come away with? Why are you on this career path? And hopefully...
So this is a class about teaching, in a sense.
It really
you
is.
guys want
I
to be
think so.
teachers? There are people here that want to be teachers? Cool. Awesome. That's really great. I did too, and here I am. So your dreams can come true. So I'm joined by my first brave guest who has come up here, one of these students in this class. Can you tell me your name?
My name is Nicole.
Nicole. And where are you from originally? Are you from New York?
Yes, but I wasn't born here.
Where were you born?
Dominican Republic.
Okay, so you're part of that population. That's a big, proud population in New York City. How long have you been at LaGuardia?
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years. So are you finishing up here? Is that what's happening?
No, I got another year to go.
Okay, so are you an education major?
Yes, I am.
So when did you decide on that? When did that become something you were interested in?
Actually, it was after my daughter turned 1 when I realized that somebody needs to educate me.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting idea. Like the idea of like looking at young people, obviously, and figuring out like, someone's got to make sure the society keeps running. I feel like that's what the teachers do in a lot of ways. I don't want to like beat my own chest here, but we do that. So how did this class change your ideas about that? What was this class to you?
Well, the main thing that actually, I guess, the biggest idea that I got out of this class was the banking concept. It's practically when a teacher just tells the student what to do and the student is supposed to follow. And I think that that's something that I completely want to contradict if I do become a teacher. I plan on being an elementary school teacher, so it's a little bit more different because you have to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like I want to be challenged by my students as well.
Yeah. That seems like a concept that's something that teachers talk a lot about. It sounds like the thing between like content and like skills stuff that we talk about. But the idea is basically like, do you call it banking? Is that what the term is? So I haven't heard it put that way before. Where'd you get that, Justin?
We got
Professor
it
Justin,
from
sorry.
the second chapter of Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed.
Nice. Pedagogy of the Oppressed. I should have known. So yeah, that idea of like, so you're telling me that you're resistant to the idea of like just packing people's minds with stuff, right? It's like the Wikipedia model of just kind of like, I will tell you how it is and you will just remember it. And that's something that, I guess I partially grew up going to schools that were a little bit like that, but I think that you're lucky in a sense to be in a class like this because that idea of moving away from that is huge right now in education, particularly around technology. We don't need to have content driven into us because content is available. You don't need to memorize when the Civil War is necessarily because you can look it up in your pocket. I'd be more interested in hearing like your thoughts and analysis and ideas about the Civil War. Sorry, I'm a historian, so it always comes back to the Civil War. So how did that? How did you guys practice doing that in class, or how did you kind of like attach that theory to real stuff?
We actually had a discussion about it. I was telling my professor that I didn't want to end up under dictatorship because I feel like that's the real meaning behind it. But then I also came up with the conclusion that it's not necessarily that teachers want to do that, it's that you always have somebody on top of you who you have to answer to.
It's hard. It's something I would definitely struggle with because I'm not that type of person that's really hierarchical. I don't like to think that people are better than others or authority. I don't like authority, that kind of stuff. But at the same time, in teaching, you have to kind of be an authority a little bit, and that's kind of is that something that you feel like you can do, that you have to like gain the confidence to control a group of students? I know that's a weird way of putting it, but that's what you're doing in a weird way.
I have faith in myself, I guess.
Yeah. And so what exercises did you guys do, like specific exercises around that idea?
Well, that actually ended up being my case study because that's the main concept that I feel that I got from this class. It's just knowing what the kind of teacher that you want to be. Yeah.
Can you tell me about your case study? No? You're not ready yet? That's all right. Okay, cool. So thanks for joining me. I wish you luck on your journey not to be a dictator.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so my next guest joining me, my next guest at LaGuardia is Sean. Sean, thank you for sitting down with me.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
Are you from New York?
No.
Where are you from originally?
I've lived all over. I was born in Jersey, and then I moved pretty much right after that.
Okay.
So.
And did you grow up? You grew up though in New York?
No.
No.
I did half of my growing up in New Hampshire and the other half in Jersey.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So how did you wind up in this class? Are you someone that's looking forward to a teaching career as well?
Yeah. I want to teach high school English.
High school English. Why high school English? Of all the things you could teach, why high school English?
When I went back to school, I wasn't planning on teaching. And I started doing really well in my English and my writing intensive courses. And I've had a lot of jobs, and the ones that I did, I guess the ones that I enjoyed the most were the ones that had some element of teaching in them.
Yeah, yeah.
And I figured, if the thing that I liked about the English classes that I was taking was the conversations that we were having, and I figured I would probably have more interesting conversations with high school students than I would with middle school or elementary school kids.
Yeah, middle school is a difficult age, isn't it? Literature,
Yeah.
is you have an interest in literature too? Is it something that...
I am interested in literature, but I kind of, right now, the way I think about what I want to teach, I think of myself as a writing teacher.
So how did this class change your ideas about teaching writing? I can tell you it's a lifelong journey trying to figure out how to teach writing. I mean, it's not something that you just write. You know? It's a process. I mean, I'm learning myself at the same time. Sorry.
Yeah, and I wouldn't assume that the class did, necessarily change it. So you can also just kind of qualify by saying if it did.
Yeah. If your attitudes were changed towards teaching writing, what did you do in this class around teaching writing?
I think my attitude about teaching changes constantly.
Yeah.
I think every time I'm exposed to something new, it changes a little bit. I think that in this class, philosophically, I don't think I've changed much. Like, I still kind of value discourse.
Yeah.
But I think that the best thing about this class was probably some of the techniques that we learned.
Like what?
And it was almost like two classes. And I don't know that the techniques were actually the best part, because there was sort of philosophical class and then there was like a practical class, and they were both pretty good.
Yeah.
So as far as a practical standpoint, we have a textbook that we used. It's Tutoring Writing by McAndrew and Regstad, which I remember because I keep writing that down.
Yeah.
And
you haven't got a keyboard shortcut for that yet?
Not yet, but I really should have.
Yeah.
So it's really like, part of it is really almost like a user's manual for teaching writing. It's really just got like, there's a page you can flip to. You have to read the whole thing to kind of get the feel for it. But then once you have a feel for it, there's a page you can flip open to, and it's like, if your student needs a topic, ask them these questions. If your student, has a topic but doesn't have a good thesis, work on these. And there's also some good exercises in there that I like a lot. So
it's about, it seems like this class is a little bit about developing process, and kind of focusing on writing as not just something that just necessarily happens, but something that you kind of do step by step, right?
Yeah, and trying to understand the process.
So did you tutor students as part of this class?
Yeah.
Did you read other students' writing?
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
I liked it. Some of the best experiences I had were with people who I kind of ended up tutoring outside this class.
Yeah.
But I definitely like, sitting down with someone and looking at
There's that authority. There's that authority figure.
Exactly.
I love looking down upon these students.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, but sitting down with them and looking at what they've written and then talking to them about it. And, I mean, I guess maybe I'm doing it because I like to talk.
Yeah. It seems like the connection between talking and writing is pretty powerful, and something that, I hope that it sounds like you've come up with in this class already.
There's a strategy called talk and writing.
Yeah. Well, Peter Elbow. Peter Elbow is a pretty famous writer about writing, and his newest book is about talking to write. And I'm on a microphone right now, so obviously I enjoy talking, and I feel like talking is really a ripe space for like, oh, I didn't really notice that before, especially conversations with people. Obviously, when you're talking to yourself, it's a different idea. So did you got to talk with students here, like undergraduates here that are kind of like working on their writing? You got to talk to them about their writing?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
so
cool.
And another thing, like an example of the talking and writing thing, at least the way I've used it, is that like I was sitting down with a student. She had read an essay for English 101, and she had to write a thesis-driven response. And she didn't know how to get started, and we had been talking about it for a while, and she had written some things, and it sounded like she was trying to sound very academic.
Yes.
And it sounded really strange.
Yes.
And so I asked her questions about it, and she started talking to me about it. And I said, just talk to me like I'm a friend of yours, or you're, a sibling. And she said something really good, right? And I said, okay, write that down, right?
Yes.
That,
Yeah.
But she didn't really remember it. And I've had the same experience where I say something, I like the way it sounds, and then I try and write it down. I don't really remember.
Yeah.
So what I've started doing, I still do that, but now I write down everything they say. Like I take notes while they're talking. That way I don't interrupt them.
Yeah.
And they can keep saying whatever it is they're saying. And then I can show them something and say, look, this is really good. And they're like, oh yeah, thanks. And I say, yeah, but that's you. Right? Like you wrote that, not me. I just wrote it down. Well,
we talk about like the process of writing partially is like finding your voice. That's the like primary metaphor, and I think there's something to that, right? There's the idea that like the more you talk, this is how you sound. And I think it's when you start to write, there tends to be, and I've noticed this among students, is the trying to sound academic. I should sound like the Wikipedia article. I should sound like someone that I'm not, and I feel like the best, the most interesting writing is authentic. It has a kind of like real voice to it. So thanks for joining me, Sean. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
So I just learned that my next guest's name is Tiffany. Is that right?
Yes.
Hi, Tiffany.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So how long have you been at LaGuardia?
About a year.
About a year?
I've been here, transferred over from York.
Okay. Why'd you transfer from York?
York just was not the college for me.
No? LaGuardia was more suited to you?
Yeah, I found that it was
so far?
Actually.
And what made you? When did you start thinking about being a teacher? If that's what you're headed towards. When did you start thinking about that? Is that something that you were like in kindergarten? I want to be a teacher, or is it something that
not at
happened
all,
recently?
No.
Yeah.
Originally, I wanted to major in psychology. But there was specifically a freshman English teacher that I had in high school that I've still to this day keep in touch with, and he was my big inspiration and my motivation to become a teacher. He had such a impact on me, and he helped me a lot through high school being probably the hardest years of my life. So that really pushed me because I want to be able,
for most of us, I think.
Yeah. So I want to be able to do the same for students like he did for me.
So there is that kind of like one way of putting it is dictator, but another way of putting it is like a figure of inspiration, right? A figure that's supposed to like kind of model. And again, I don't want to be like teachers are the best people on earth, but I can tell you that I had professors in college that made me want to be a professor. I didn't want to be a professor until I think after I was out of college, which is kind of a weird way to think about it. But I got out of college and was like, I think back to the people that really impacted me, and they were teachers that kind of, and some of it wasn't necessarily pedagogical, like you said. It's like sometimes it's just kind of like a support and knowing that someone is there. So is it writing that you want to teach, or is it English specifically?
English, yeah, specifically.
And did you get to tutor people in this class too?
Yes, I did.
Was it the first time you've done something like that?
Yeah, I was extremely nervous.
Why were you nervous? I mean, what did it constitute? Was it like you face to face with someone? Is that what you guys are doing? You're like,
yeah.
Okay.
We were literally face to face, interacting with the students, and I guess like most of my nerves just really came from like, what if I get stuck and I don't know what to say, or what if I'm not sure of what to do?
Yeah.
But I mean, in this class, we did prepare a lot for it, and especially with the readings that we had, it made me feel a lot more comfortable. So whenever I did come at a blank, I would think of anything, or I would think of any other strategies that were mentioned in the book to just keep it moving
and draw back to some of that
Mm-hmm.
knowledge. Yeah, that's good. Nice job for preparing them a little bit. Feeling a little whatever. Feeling a little bit of confidence in like what you're talking about. But there's also an aspect of teaching that I know. Professor Rogers Cooper indulges in this a little bit. Is sometimes you are a fool up here. You are going to be embarrassed. Just by virtue of the fact that you're in front of a group of people for a couple hours each week. There are going to be times where I'm like say something stupid or get a fact completely wrong or say something embarrassing. And so that for me, and I think I
embarrass myself every class.
Yeah, I have no doubt that you do. But that humanizes you a little bit, right? I mean, I hope it humanizes you. I hope that when you do mess up. I think I just wrote this the other day in something about teaching that like a good attitude to have is kind of like not so much I'm going to tell you how this is, but more like, look, I'm a human being too. We're all trying to figure this out. Like I'm trying to be a better writer too. Ultimately, I want to be a better teacher too. So all of us are doing this together. We all might be at different like levels of that process, but we can all kind of help each other out. So I would say like being embarrassed and like messing up a little bit. That's why this part of this podcast, I screw up all the time, and feel like I need to re-edit that. But that's part of what makes it human, is feeling that. So how did that go for you? Those first times did you feel better afterwards?
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was actually talking with my professor about it and explaining how nervous I was. Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, they're just as nervous as you are. Yeah. And, he explained to me that, you can kind of play into it. Like, my thing is I didn't want to show that I was so nervous. Yeah. But he kind of like explained it in a way that it's okay to show that you are nervous. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just because they are nervous as well.
It brings out the empathy. Like when I see someone up there like shaking or, their voice shaking, I never feel like, oh, look at what a nervous person they are. Look at that failure. I never feel that way. I'm instead kind of like, it's like, oh, I feel that way when I'm up there too, right? Like it kind of helps to know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was great tutoring them. I mean, it's just you always make it worse in your mind than what it actually is. Yeah. So, but I had a great experience. I mean, I got to, face the challenge of tutoring 2 students at a time. Yeah. Which was completely nerve-wracking. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I just used my example from the writing center and stuff that we discussed in class to kind of get myself through the session. Yeah. And I think it went pretty well. I asked them and they said I did good. So
good. There is a little element of like fake it till you make it kind of thing where when I first started at CUNY many years ago, I had no idea how to teach. I mean, the dirty secret is when you're in graduate school, they just throw you in the classroom. And I was like,
well, not anymore.
What? There's more training now?
No, there's much less. They don't do as much teaching. They give them all the money, and then they only let them do like 1 class a year for their final 2 years. So it's nothing like what we went through.
Well, we could get into labor at CUNY, and that would be the rest of the show. But either way, I was thrown into a classroom and I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember talking to another teacher that was older teacher that said, just remember that no matter what, they think you know a lot more than and you do, like, or you're endowed like with some authority just by virtue of the fact that like I'm up here and I'm in front of the class and you guys are sitting down. But there's also an element of that you do know a lot more than them in a certain sense. You know what I mean? Like you guys are trained. You guys do have knowledge that you know how it is to be at that level of where you're just kind of lost. When you're going to the writing center, you're looking for someone that just knows even a little bit more than you is going to help. So that's a really, really valuable lesson. Thanks for sitting down with me, Tiffany.
You're welcome.
All right. So I think this is Danielle. Is that right? Daniela. Yeah. Hi, Daniela. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Can you get a little bit closer to the microphone? Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay. So how long have you been at LaGuardia?
I've been here for 3 years.
Okay.
This is my last semester.
Are you graduating?
Yes.
So you're doing the, yeah. Sorry. Congratulations. You're doing the cap and gown walk and taking pictures and all that? No? Why not?
I want to wait until I get my bachelor's.
Yeah.
I don't want to make my mom go to so many graduations.
Yeah, it gets old. All those caps and gowns. All right. So, where are you moving on to next?
Hopefully Queens or Hunter. Hunter is my second choice.
Cool.
Yeah.
So sticking with CUNY, what was your experience like in this class? Are you also looking towards like majoring in English or education?
Yeah, I'm an education major, secondary education. I want to teach high school English.
Yeah, high school English again. Did you have a good experience in high school English? Is that part of why, or a bad experience maybe?
I had a good experience in middle school, which is also secondary education.
Yeah.
But mostly what inspires me to want to be a teacher is the bad teachers that I've had. Mm-hmm. Because I've always felt like that could be me, and I could be doing a better job.
Yeah.
And somebody needs to do it.
What do you think are the things that constitute a bad teacher? I know there's a million different things that could make a teacher a bad teacher, but in terms of like teaching writing and that kind of thing, what is it that is a bad teacher to you?
Well, one of the things that mostly got to me was teachers who see students as like numbers or just, people in the classroom. They don't think of them as like individuals who have, an emotional connection with their writing or, who can think freely. They just think of them as, people who they need to get in and out of their class. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that's a common theme in the class today, is that you don't want to feel like you don't want a teacher that's just an authority, a figure of authority, the dictator idea, but you also don't want, students feel that, students feel that kind of like that robotic kind of notion. So, how do you kind of get away with that? How do you get away from that idea? I think it starts by, first and foremost, feeling that way. Because I was made to feel that way many times through middle school and high school. And, and I just kept telling myself, I can do this and I can do this so much better. Yeah. And, I understand that, you can't just walk into a classroom and say, well, hey, I'm your friend and I'm going to teach you for the next 9 months, but don't worry, we're going to chill. Yeah, you can't say stuff like that.
It's hard. Yeah. It's a difficult balance to strike, I think. I mean, I want to be like the cool guy teacher that's like, oh, don't worry, it's no big deal. But at the same time, you can't really, you have to have a leash a little bit. And that's an uncomfortable thing, I think, to have for feeling people, is to have a leash on someone or like feel like you have a power over them in some way, but there has to be a structure.
Well, I think that's where, connecting with your students and seeing them as, as a person, as an individual, that's where that comes in. Because, you can't connect with everybody the same way either.
Well, did you have to take standardized tests and stuff like that?
Yeah, I did.
We're in an era of standardized testing, and it seems like there's a push back from that, not only from teachers. I think teachers are pretty upset over the direction of education, but students too. I mean, no one wants to feel like they're just studying to fill in a bunch of boxes on some Scantron and then there you go. You got your education. I mean, we want to feel like we're, better human beings somehow when we leave, whatever that means to us. So yeah, do you feel like that human element was here in the class? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but did you feel like
definitely.
This was? Yeah. Justin's no robot.
Yeah, I was talking with a couple of students the other day, and we were saying, like he's not one of those. Because even here in LaGuardia, there's some professors. Well, I hope don't hear this. There's some professors
we won't name
who,
them.
They think that same way. They still, they're still in that mindset that they're just there to stand, lecture, we take notes, pass a test, and that's how the whole semester's gonna be. But, with Professor Rajiv Cooper, it was different. he took the time to, explain everything to us. I think that he connected with us, or at least with me, in certain ways.
Yeah, there's congratulations for achieving that tone. I think that there's different philosophies on that. I mean, I read there's a book I was reading called The Memory Chalet by Tony Judt, who's a historian, and he was writing about how he learned the German language in school in England in the 1940s. And basically he said he went into the classroom, and this really terrifying teacher comes in the room right at 8 a.m. and starts chalking stuff on the board, says nothing, just starts putting stuff on the board. This, do this, pointing here and there. And they said they were all horrified of them, but they really learned German really well. And he was kind of going back and forth on that idea of I learned German really well, but all of us lived in terror the entire semester, and it wasn't a fun time, and we didn't feel like a human connection at all. So it sounds like you feel maybe that there's a middle path there, right?
Yeah, like I said, you definitely can't just walk in there and be like, well, don't do anything for the next 45 minutes and it's all good. Yeah. You can't do that. But you have to connect. You have to know how to connect with each person. You have to know your boundaries with each person, because you might have to push some people more than others.
That's absolutely true. I think, and part of the more I teach, the more I realize that you're dealing with a room full of very different personalities and very different experiences. And some of you had a really bad morning and got here this morning and had a terrible morning on the subway, and I don't know that, and I don't know that that's affecting the look that's on your face right now. So, yeah, I think sensitivity is the best thing that we can have as teachers. Thank you, Daniela, for sitting down with me.
Thank you.
How's it going?
Okay.
You're Rajiv?
Rajiv, yeah.
Rajiv, nice to meet you. How long have you been at LaGuardia?
This is actually my third year.
Okay. And what are you doing here? I mean, obviously you're getting an education, but
I'm a secondary ed major with a focus on English.
Cool.
Yeah, I want to teach at the high school level.
Teach in high school? Do you want to teach high school? I'm going to ask you guys, do you want to teach high school here in New York? Or anywhere in particular?
No, I don't have really any specific places where to like to teach.
What led you to want to be a teacher?
It really happened after my first year in LaGuardia. I came in as a psychology major, and after my first year, I decided to switch. This is gonna sound like you can edit this out. No. This is gonna sound like I'm a kissing ass to Professor Cooper.
Yeah.
But I took English 101 with Professor Cooper.
Okay.
And, it's probably my only strong point academically, because academics was never really part of my life goals growing up.
No.
Because sports was always.
What were your sports?
I grew up in the Caribbean and I played cricket nationally.
Yeah.
And that was always like what I planned to do professionally. And I was born in the United States, and I came back at the beginning of high school. And I passed through high school, above average student.
Right.
And I enrolled into LaGuardia, and I just said, let me choose something. Because I wanted to get away from. And
we don't have a cricket team, right?
Exactly.
Is that right?
Exactly.
Cricket is not nearly as popular here in the United States. So it sounds like you kind of like discovered a little bit of like your strengths as you moved along. I think that's part of teaching too. Is kind of like the best teachers will try and locate that in people and try and kind of promote that a little bit of like, hey, you're really good at this or that. In terms of teaching writing. How did that work for you in terms of tutoring students? When you're reading a student's writing, how are you going about like, what are you writing on their page? Because there's a lot of thought about like, what you write on the page.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, based on the observations we did this semester, I can relate a lot to the students because I was in their situation two years ago.
Right.
So I always have that in my mind. Everyone has a different academic capacity.
Yeah.
I know mine is low. I need to read things 5 or 6 times before I comprehend everything.
Yeah.
So I can understand. But I was really fortunate. I work with the 3 live tutoring sessions. I work with 3 really good students. And I think I came away thinking to myself, I had a positive impact on their piece, their work.
How do you negotiate language issues around writing? How is that? Because in a lot of ways, I'm at CUNY too. I'm working with a lot of students for whom English is not their first language, and so you have to like kind of separate the language issues a little bit from the ideas. Is that something that you worked on here?
Yeah, the communication sometimes is a bit stagnant. Like, there's pauses where, what should I say? Is the person understanding what I'm saying? So you try your best to reach out to them. I always try to stay on task. I don't want to get like too close to them on personal level. I always try to stay with the work. Yeah. Especially being our first tutoring experience. Right. So I just wanted to have that professional distance.
Is there an issue with kind of having the confidence to kind of critique someone else's writing? Do you ever feel like, who am I to tell a person that they shouldn't do it this way or that way?
Yeah, to a certain degree, because there's no right or wrong, I think, in writing. If someone has a thesis, you can't say to someone, to his or her claim, hey, you're wrong about that.
Yeah, right.
Prove it to me, or,
Sure.
Because you ask them to prove it, so they can ask you, hey, you prove it to me.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying right or wrong? So.
No, it's a really interesting idea, is the idea of like, you're not there. And I feel like, and I don't know if you guys did like peer review stuff where you like kind of pass around each other's writing. I'm starting to teach writing a little bit like that. And the idea is, not to necessarily focus on the stuff that's wrong, but to like locate the things that are right. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Do you do that?
Yeah, we did that in all our writing assignments before handing it in.
Cool. Now, is this through the Writing Center that you guys do this, the tutoring, or is this something where do you find your students?
The first in the first 5 weeks of the class, we have to observe 4 sessions at the Writing Center and witness 30 to 60 minute tutoring sessions between a Writing Center tutor who's like at LaGuardia and working in the Writing Center and a student who came into the Writing Center.
Right.
And the Writing Center is like really cooperative with us about that kind of thing. And then once we have those observations under our belt, and once we've looked at that book by McAndrew and Reichstad, Tutoring Writing, and had a few conversations about the practice of tutoring, then we hook up with different professors' classes. And that's kind of a rolling negotiation that I have with other faculty that happen to have 101 or 99 classes meeting at the time that we're meeting. And since this is a Monday, Friday class, we had to do it on a Monday because no one else taught on Fridays. And we had 2 sessions with a 101, and then we had 1 session with a 99 basic writing class.
So I know you teach a 101. It wasn't linked up necessarily to your 101, though.
No.
But you found a store of fresh students. I was wondering where you were getting that writing. Yeah,
it's actually one of the cooler things that LaGuardia does is allows this 220 class to get into those other classrooms. And the most difficult thing, I think, for the students and for my own preparation is those 101 or 99 classes can sometimes have like 25, 28 students, and there's only 14, 15 of us.
Yeah.
So it's really throwing the students into a kind of high-stakes situation right off, and they have to immediately negotiate 2 students at once within a session. And that's something that when you look at writing centers around the country, some of them don't believe that can be effective. LaGuardia feels differently. Our own writing center feels differently. I think our students' positive experiences with tutoring two students at once shows that it can be done well.
No, it sounds like for me, placing like limits and challenges is like how you grow entirely. So I want to ask you this last question. What do you think future students in this class should know about this class? What would you tell them as if they were starting the semester next semester?
If I was to give what should they expect?
Yeah, what should they expect if you were telling them about this class?
Well, if they're taking
if they were sitting next to you on the train and they said, "What class are you taking?" Yeah, what would you tell them about this class?
Well, I'll say be prepared.
Yeah,
because you have to invest time into the tutoring and observations. I think that's what I took out of the class was probably the most. How would I put it? It's a unique experience. Observing a tutoring session.
Yeah.
And then being able to tutor, applying what you observe and adjusting, and then going and tutoring yourself. Because that's what we did. We observed first, and then we, everything that we observed, the good and the bad, and we made adjustments in order to apply to our own tutoring. So I guess that's
a really lucky opportunity to have. That's something I've never actually done myself as a teacher. I've never observed a tutoring session and then kind of jumped into one. So that's a really great opportunity. Thanks for telling me about it. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rajiv. Patricia.
Not cool.
Okay. Hi, Patricia. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
So how long have you been at LaGuardia?
I've been at LaGuardia on and off for the last 3 years.
Cool. And what are you doing here? What are you moving towards? If you're moving towards anything.
Well, when I first started, I was a secondary education major. And then after taking a brief break, I decided to come back as a writing and literature major.
So what changed? Why did you move towards writing and literature?
I think it mostly had to do with class selection. I know that sounds really dumb, but it had to do with the class selection. I was more interested in the literature aspect of education than I was about being a well-rounded teacher, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes what you find is totally accidental in college. I mean, it's kind of like being open is kind of the key to this experience, because finding something that's interesting to you might pop out and you don't think that was going to be it. I mean, I was going to be a lawyer. I was going to go to law school in my first freshman year. I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. But
But then I saw this thing in the school newspaper about an audition for a short film in the film studies department, and I thought, film studies department, what is that? And I ended up going up, seeing the flyers and seeing the list of classes, and it's like, you can study Italian film and you can study like all this stuff. And that's when I switched and I became a film studies major, and my I had a lot of explaining to my parents about that. But there is something to that idea that, if you're open, you will eventually find something that maybe will surprise you that you're interested in. So you're continuing, and it sounds like this class is a step towards that. How was tutoring for you? What was that like?
Tutoring.
Well, first, was it for your first teaching experience, like directly teaching another human being?
No,
I guess we all teach in this way, right?
I actually am a tutor. I tutor elementary school kids in reading comprehension. It was a different experience. I remember telling Dr. Rogers Cooper that I was completely terrified of dealing with like another adult.
Yeah. So you thought it's easier to talk to a little kid?
It definitely is a lot easier to talk to a little kid.
Sometimes it's really. I was just with a lot of little kids yesterday at a baby shower, and sometimes it's not easy to talk to little kids.
Maybe not in that environment.
Yeah.
But I find it a lot easier. I guess because the kids that I tutor, they're really receptive. They're really open to me being there. They're excited that I'm there. And it's something I look forward to. So tutoring a college student. I think the first session wasn't that great for me. Mm-hmm. We were both really awkward. So it's kind of difficult when you're both awkward, And I tried to talk to her, but it just seemed weird.
Very really stunted forced. And forced.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I know that feeling. I mean, I tutor debate workshops for students that are doing, in-class debates. And sometimes when it's just a one-on-one, and it's just, that's something that happens between any two people, I think, is when you're just meeting someone, you're kind of like, who is this person and why am I, what is the nature of this relationship, So how did you get over that? Do you feel better now?
Well, actually, I see her around a lot, and every time I see her, she always stops by and says hi to me, which is kind of, it's not weird. It's weird because that's not like the initial response I thought I would get from her. I thought she would just be like, oh, look at her, whatever, and turn the other way.
Right.
But she makes it her mission to come up and talk to me every time she does see me. So I guess, it wasn't that bad. Maybe I'm just overthinking it in my head.
Yeah. Well, there is an aspect of that too, to teaching, is just kind of like, I often wind up, when I leave class, I'm like, does everyone hate me? Did everyone, because I just ended class and I feel like they weren't into it today. But, like I said, there's a whole range of experiences that we all bring to this thing. And being in a school environment kind of adds a little kind of pressure. Even just turning on this microphone adds a certain kind of context to things. Yeah. Well, Patricia, thanks for joining me.
No problem. Thank you.
I got everyone's name except yours. What's your name? Nikita. Can you get a little bit closer to the microphone? Thank you. Yeah. So how long have you been at LaGuardia?
Actually, I've been here a little bit too long.
Yeah.
So hopefully the fall will be my last semester and I'll graduate.
And then what do you want to do after this?
Well, I'm really exploring my options. I'm not sure which school I want to go to, but I'm going to continue with the writing literature.
Yeah.
And see where that takes me.
Has teaching always been an interest of yours?
Yes and no. I've had this passion to go into publishing, but I also have the flip side to go into maybe teaching a creative writing course. So I'm in between that and the other. Maybe I might do both.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
When you say publishing, what do you mean by the publishing world?
Yeah. Children's books. And I'm really focusing. I'm thinking I might do children's books, publishing children's books.
Cool. Do you have a favorite children's book? I'm trying to remember what my favorite children's books are.
Yes, I do. Actually do have a favorite book. It's I'm trying to remember it. I think it's I'll Love You Forever. Yeah, that one.
Do you know that one? You might have more familiarity.
Yeah, I have a lot of children's books now.
Yeah, it seems like. Do you have Bedtime for Francis? You know that one? It's like they're little baby porcupines. They're really cute. So, you know, when you're talking about children's literature, you know, how does that relate to what you're learning here? Because it seems like you're not writing children's literature in this class. You're more kind of like doing analytical stuff, right?
No, it doesn't, but it relates to in terms of the teaching part.
Yeah.
So it relates in that sense, being that I'm thinking between teaching either junior high school or high school.
Yeah.
A creative writing course, so it still flows into that same direction.
Are you from New York originally?
Yes.
Where are you from in New York?
East Elmhurst, Queens.
Okay. And so, you know, how did you end up at LaGuardia? Why LaGuardia?
Actually, I came here because I actually got some positive feedback from my aunts and my uncles about this school.
Yeah.
And it's close. It doesn't take forever to get here.
Yeah.
I used to go to Queensboro, and that took me forever. So
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I can't do this.
Yeah.
This one straight shot on the train, and I'm here.
So, in your experience of teaching and teaching writing, was this your first time, like, sitting down, teaching students this way?
Yes, it was. This was my first time.
Did you feel nervous talking to? Because I mean, sometimes you're like very close in age to these people, right?
Yeah.
Like they're
a lot.
Yeah.
Yes and no, because I used to teach pre-K, but then it's different when you're teaching children like between 2 and 3. You have to be more. You have to be more patient with them.
Yes.
You know, and you have to be able to just basically take anything that comes in your way when it's kids.
Yeah.
Because they're smaller, and there's an approach. You know, you have to speak to them a certain way. But when it was an adult doing it, it's totally different.
Yeah.
But I kind of felt like, let me just wing it.
Yeah.
Just going with full force and just kind of let them, talk to them and let them see how I am, so they wouldn't feel nervous about talking to me. So I felt like that.
That's probably the best approach in any social situation. It seems like is to approach it that way. I think about teaching kids, small children. I was like, I was nervous coming to CUNY because I didn't know about decorum at CUNY. I thought maybe I'll be turning my back to the students and they'll be throwing spitballs at me and stuff like that. I thought it was like some 1950s 8th grade or something. But we talk about like decorum issues. It doesn't seem like that's necessarily what you're doing here. Like I don't have to tell everyone, hey, stop, talking and all that kind of stuff. But it does seem there's some human challenge.
Yeah.
A little bit, right?
Yes.
There's like a little bit of like, I don't know, what you're talking about is kind of like approaching it in an open way, right?
To be open. And I kind of like just took a deep breath and was like, you know what, let me not be nervous because there's no reason to be nervous.
Yeah.
Even though it's natural. So I'm like, let me just talk. They're just a person. They're just human beings like me. So by me sitting there and talking to them face to face, it was like, oh, okay, well, wow. It's like talking to just a friend.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much how I took it.
Yeah, and I mean, it came up earlier with one of my other guests today. Is the idea of like, you can't really necessarily just show up and be like, you're my friend, let's be friends. And it's like, who are you? I don't know who you are, but there's an art to it.
Right.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's part of what we're learning here.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Any volunteers?
Okay, so I missed your name. What's your name?
My name is Hamarich.
Hamarich.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you too.
So how was this class for you?
Oh, this class is pretty interesting. To be honest, when I first registered for this class, it was recommended for my my major.
Right.
And first, I thought this class is a basic class that you do like 2 to 3 essays and that's it. But when we get into stuff with Justin Roger Cooper, it's pretty interesting when you started off with tutoring and all these different types of techniques and stuff like that. So it gave me a broader expand to work with students.
Yeah, I always, I've been friends with Justin Rogers Cooper for many, many years. We went to graduate school together, and I always think to myself, Justin's students are in for it. Like, I don't know if they know that they're in for it, that it's going to be, no matter what, there's going to be a lot going on in the class, no matter what, how you end up orienting yourself towards it. Did you feel overwhelmed by the class, or were you really, like, into it?
Well, to be honest...
You can be honest.
Yeah, to be honest, when I first read the syllabus, I said to myself, damn, this is a lot of essays and papers. But when Justin Cooper started to break down everything and worked it out and give us samples of different type of essays connected with templates, everything just worked out the way it is.
Yeah. So you'd probably feel more like overwhelmed if it were like a class, and maybe I'll ask everyone, would you feel more overwhelmed by a class that's just like, well, you're just going to hear someone lecture the whole time, and then you're going to write a 15-page paper at the end of the class? And it's kind of like, well, what's that 15-page paper going to be like? Because I always feel like, what did I teach at all then? If you're just going to like, I just assume you can write a 15-page paper.
That's right.
So did it feel like the process, like doing it in a process like that, made it like not so overwhelming in a sense?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Do you want to be a teacher? Is that what you want to do?
Yes, I want to be a teacher, and I had wanted to be a teacher since I was in 8th grade because my dad is a teacher for 20 years now, and I have 2 other cousins who's a high school teacher.
It's a family business.
Something like that. Yes.
Yeah. Did your dad and did your like the figures in your family like tell you should be a teacher, or was it something that was like your birthright, or was it more like, well, do whatever you want, but if you end up teaching, it's cool?
No, they never did. But to be honest with you, when I first started my middle school, I have a good friend of mine who's a middle school teacher. So I used to be like a teacher pet with him. Then I started high school. My dad taught at the same high school as well. I go every afternoon sitting with him, and I said, you know what, I could do this. And it just come to mind.
Yeah. There's I do remember actually very clearly seeing a history professor like doing a lecture style presentation. So it wasn't, right. But I was just kind of like in awe of this woman and like what she was able to do. I thought I could do that. I would be. Maybe there is an ego element to it. I want to be up behind the podium. They should be listening to me. Do you have any of that in you? Do you a little bit of like wanting to I don't know, share knowledge with people? Is that part of your desire to teach?
Oh yes. Definitely yes, especially for students who needed help. Especially New York City is a multicultural place with different types of people from different countries. And now I believe I could be a teacher to make a change because I'm my parents from the Caribbean countries, so I think I could work with them. They would feel comfortable working with, and also help them, especially if they're second language students, to get up there.
Yeah. I think that's a really important part of what CUNY is in a way, is that CUNY is a place where we all kind of locate the common human element despite all those differences. I mean, I come from a much more, racially and socially homogenous place, and coming to CUNY has just like completely changed my attitude towards what education is, because it seems like education is finding that common human element through all of that.
Yes.
Did you have fun tutoring?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. The most reason why I have fun tutoring is because Justin taught me to. I never have this idea how to become a tutor. So now if someone have a good paper or bad paper, I can able to make critiques and help that person to create a better paper. Yeah. And up top of that, if I am nervous or something like that, I don't have to be nervous because the stuff that he taught us is the way how we have to react to the paper. So you just ask questions. Once you keep asking questions, everything flows and everything. You dug into the past experience with different tutors and writers and stuff like that, and you learn from that. Yeah,
I mean, it shouldn't feel like, even though there is so much of a performative element of what we're doing, it shouldn't feel like a performance. It should feel like, I'm sitting down and we're just chatting and we're going to get through it together. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for sitting down with me.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Volunteers? So is your name LaVon? Is that right? No? Did I get that wrong already?
Yes, that's my name.
I can edit that out.
I'm joking. My name is Valbona.
Valbona?
Yes.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
So are you also an aspiring teacher?
Yes, but I want to become a childhood education teacher, not a secondary.
Okay.
I connect more with little kids than I do with adults, people like me.
Yeah.
I can't really connect with them.
So when teaching children, obviously it's a very different thing, but at the same time, we talked about that, you're sitting here in a class where you're not teaching children. So what did you draw from this that you think you might be able to apply to the little ones?
I did learn a lot. I have worked with little kids before. I have a lot of little cousins, but I wasn't really nervous going to tutoring because I'm a friendly person, so I get along mostly with everybody. But I, learned a lot of techniques that I could apply. Yeah. I could also use that for little kids as well because they will be learning how to read and write. They need to learn how to write the ABCs, right?
Yeah,
so,
right.
I can apply a lot of those to kids.
Yeah. Did you, when you were tutoring, did that were you uncomfortable tutoring because they weren't little kids?
No. I mean, it was a girl, so it was more comfortable for me.
Yeah.
And then it was funny because I tutored her once, and then when I went back again, I had the same person I tutored before. So it was more comfortable for me, and we got along very well. I also gave her my email and told her if she ever needed help, I could help her.
Yeah. So why do you say it was a girl was more comfortable? Because I only say that because some people would say the opposite. Some say, well, it was a guy, so obviously it was more comfortable.
More friendly with girls than with men. I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It happens.
The woman thing.
Yeah, no, I get it. But it's as a teacher, it's interesting because you don't get a choice often. Like who's showing up. I mean, it's just going to be every kind of different person. So do you feel like that goes away with little kids a little bit?
Yeah, because they're little. I mean, what do they know?
They're not as gendered.
Yeah, they won't exactly.
Yeah. So if you were talking to someone about taking this class, what would you tell them?
I would definitely tell them to take Dr. Cooper. He was a really good professor, not because he's here, but I did enjoy this class. Like Hamraj said, in the beginning, I was like, oh my God, I wanted to shoot myself. And then I wanted to drop it too.
Because it seemed like a lot of work?
Yeah, because the syllabus, kind of.
Like, come on with this guy. Yeah.
And then when I met him and he started talking more and more, I'm like, okay, fine, let me just give it a week. And after a week, I was like, okay, this is not bad. I can,
Well, that's a credit to you, Justin, a little bit, because I think you guys all know this, that if it's a rigorous class with a boring professor, with tons of work in it, and a professor that you don't really connect with, or feel like is cool at all, that does make it hard.
And
I think
he also explained the assignments. Some professors just write on the board, tell you what to do. He explained them, and if we needed to revise, he always let us revise. So that's why I suggest that other students should take this class because he's really good at doing that.
Do you write your own stuff in this class too? You did your case study, is that right?
Yeah, we did write the case study. I did write that as well.
What is the case study? Maybe you can tell me about yours.
Sure, it's about our philosophy in tutoring students. I just wrote about mine that students should be able to tutor. Hold on, I just messed up. Students should be able to think freely,
Yeah.
And when you think freely, you write freely.
Yes.
So that's what I believe.
No, I think most of us believe that too here. That the idea that feeling like I always put it as bullshitting. When you're feeling like you're just making it up as you go along and filling in. Well, I need this assignment is 4 to 5 pages, and I'm only on page 3, so I better make the font a little bigger and try that. I mean, I think we've all done that in college, and it's not a good feeling. It's not like you feeling like you're producing something you're proud of. Look at my 18 font, 18 point font thing. So did you feel more like you knew what you were writing about?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
The subject was interesting as well. The topic that most of the topics we had to do were interesting.
Yeah.
It's not like it was boring and we had nothing to write about.
Yeah.
We wrote about what we wanted to write about.
Cool.
So it's not, anything to worry about, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think feeling that connection to what you're writing is not only important, it's probably critical to the whole thing. You can tell when someone is bored with what they're writing and is just BSing. And same thing with a oral presentation. If I was up here or any of you were up here, just kind of being making it up as you go along and not really grounded, it would and not passionate about it. And I know it's hard to kind of just generate passion, but at the same time, it's kind of important in the whole process. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're gonna have to edit that, right?
No, that's all right. Okay, what's your name?
I'm Brooke.
Brooke? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So, how long have you been at LaGuardia?
Almost 2 years now.
And you want to be a teacher too? Is it all teachers in this
I'm
class?
not sure
what
I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm a writing and lit major.
Okay.
I I think I want to go into like nonprofit work or writing for a magazine, which seem like two opposite things, but kind of.
Magazines don't make any profits anymore. Anyone? Sorry. Okay, so it sounds like the class can work for people that aren't necessarily going to be teachers too. What did you get out of the tutoring experience that might be helpful for you?
Well, I mean, like right now I'm a nanny, and the tutoring experience has like really helped with like being able to engage with the girls I watch.
How old are they?
3 and 4.
Okay.
Well, they're 4 and 5.
Yeah.
It's helped me to like be able to like with their homework and stuff, I'm able to communicate with them better, and like instead of just showing them the answer, I can like ask them questions and engage them in like critical thinking.
The process.
Critical thinking.
Yeah.
As much as you can.
On a 3 and 4-year-old.
Right,
yeah. But that's actually really interesting to me because I mean, we are always, since I've been only a college teacher, I've only really thought about like how to help people who are like 18 to 22 or in that range learn how to write and figure out what the next step of their lives are. But it sounds like these principles are transferable to other ages in some respects. So can you tell me a little bit about your case study?
I mostly talked about Ferrer's pedagogy of the oppressed and how like banking education should be like eradicated pretty much throughout the system.
Yeah.
But it's also hard to do that because like it's so ingrained
in
like our culture right now. And so it kind of needs to change from the inside out.
So it sounds like you brought a little bit of politics into this class. Is that right?
I think that politics has found its way into education, and so that you can't talk about one without.
You didn't bring the politics.
Yeah.
The politics burst its way through the door.
Yes.
On its own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think politics is an important part when you're talking about education because there's so many different, like differing ideas about it.
Yeah.
And
not only ideas, but policies and people in shadowy rooms smoking cigars, figuring out the next step of what this school is going to be. So how do you? Are you from New York originally?
Yeah.
Okay. And how did you wind up at LaGuardia?
Well, I just I took a few years off of after high school, and I moved around a little bit, and then I just ended up here. I wanted to go back and start my life. And
yeah. And so was tutoring people an experience that was difficult for you? Like, was it uncomfortable, or is it something that came naturally?
I'm a pretty awkward person.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the most comfortable experience. Also,
a lot of teachers are very awkward. I think you probably know that, right? Like that comes with the territory. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a little bit difficult, but I think like the more I did it, like the more I saw I was able to help people.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the most important part is to see that you're making a difference.
Yeah.
So.
Were there challenges in this class? Is there anything that was hard for you?
I don't know. I really liked this class. I liked a lot of the topics we touched upon, like because it wasn't only just about teaching writing, like because he pulled in like other aspects of like the political and like the philosophical and everything. It was kind of like all tied together, so it made it a lot easier to be involved in the class.
And,
So
cool. Thanks for sitting down.
Yeah.
All right. Hi. How are you?
Good, thank you.
What's your name?
Elba.
Elba. Nice to meet you. So how long have you been here at LaGuardia?
2 years now.
2 years. And do you want to be a teacher?
Yes, childhood education.
Childhood education. So again, with the little kids.
Yes.
What draws you to that?
Okay.
Can you get?
I have 4 little kids at home. So I figure I can do this. I'm doing it at home.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's true. And there's something about like all of us, like the best people, whether they're teachers or not, are teachers. Does that make sense? Like the best people to me are people that help you figure something out, whether you're doing that formally or not. The person that is when I'm at the gas station and I don't know how to do something, the guy that comes over and says like, "Hey, can let me help you out?" I'm like, "Thank God you're here." And that's just one example, but like you need people to help you in life. Like life is not an easy thing. There's a lot of different times that you need someone to show you how to do something.
It's funny you should say that, actually, because one of my favorite things in the class was the collaborative aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And not only is that part of my case study, but I have kind of this competing strategies between collaborative and student-centered, and how they both need to be addressed, and how important they are to society as a whole.
Yeah.
So I found that exciting about the class.
So can you tell me a little bit more about that, your case study?
Well, my case study, let me see. My favorite experience that I did detail in the case study was the first tutoring, which was in ENG 99 class, Professor Hendricks' class.
101.
Oh, it was 101? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. 101. And I sat down with two students who had opposing views. And one was for gentrification, the other one was opposed to gentrification.
Oh, nice.
And I just found that during the conversation, there's kind of this spark of understanding, even though they're not buying into it.
Yeah.
But there's a layer of, oh, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that to me is powerful.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think what you're saying about we don't want to go too far into, Marxism and communism, but, what you're saying about like collaborative learning and being able to work together and being able to have that, what we call student-centered learning kind of, is empowering, and it's important. We don't want to have a disempowered population of people that feel like they can't figure things out on their own. In a way, this class is like, teaching how to be teaching in a sense is something that I feel like just sitting here, I've learned a lot, about what this class is. It feels like these are tools that can not just be applied in classrooms.
No, definitely. It's something that has seeped into other aspects of my life.
And how was the tutoring experience for you?
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think it's exciting when you have people with completely different views actually sit down and have a conversation.
Is that the gentrification thing you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. And it seems like that's a cool thing to talk about in the sense because it's what we're all experiencing. Wherever you live in New York, your experience, you can relate to a little bit of what's being talked about there, right? The landscape is changing in New York. Yes. What neighborhood do you live in? Woodside. So I'm curious, what were the two sides of the gentrification debate these kids were talking about?
So one of them is explaining all of the challenges that she had to endure, her and her family, that it was at one point very violent, but then the community kind of pulled together and made it a stable place where people started feeling like I'm at home.
Yeah.
And then after all of the struggle and the strife, then came in, these, what's the word they're using now? It escapes me. I put it in the paper.
Luxury condo developments? No.
No. Okay, it'll come to me.
It's all right.
So she's going on about how emotional it is for her having to say goodbye to people who lived near her for generations. And when the other student wanted to come back to, and say something to defend her argument, what she had was, well, we'll have trendy stores.
Yeah, and $5 coffee and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, the gentrification debate is a really, really important one. I think that's one example of how, a class like this can help you negotiate and navigate, like whether you know what gentrification, whether you know about it or not, gentrification knows about you. You know what I mean? Like whether you're interested in politics or not, politics is interested in you. And so, that idea I think is really important because what you're talking about is like people discovering critical thinking in a sense. And
yes, and respecting each other in the process, learning that dialogue of, okay, I don't agree, but this is what I need to say.
Yeah, right. This is my viewpoint. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. What's your name?
Dina.
Dina? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Are you going to be a teacher?
Yes, my plan is to do teaching English to learners of a second language at Queens College.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wait, so that sounds like you already have a job lined up. Like,
I know it does.
Yeah.
Right? There are more job opportunities, and
Uh-huh.
I think those teachers have a little more freedom
Yeah.
with how they want to teach because they don't have to follow such a specific curriculum.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is something I am interested in.
So how was this class for you? Was the tutoring thing the first time you've ever taught someone?
No, I worked at a daycare before, but it was the first time I was working one-on-one with people my age.
Yeah.
Which confirmed that I didn't want to work with adults.
Yeah.
I'd rather work with the children. But
Why is that? Is it something like you, or do you think, or is it something with them? You know what I mean? Like, that's the age of people.
No, I do think it's me, but it also is intimidating working with people your age because I feel like, I'm here at LaGuardia learning the same way they are.
Yes.
Who am I to tell them what they need to do?
Yeah, yeah.
But for kids, it's a little different.
Yeah, because you have years of experience above them, and you can just there is something to like gaining confidence as a figure of pedagogy, or however you want to put it. So what was your case study about?
Well, I focused mainly on how we read an article about rigid rules and how usually when you're going through high school, the teachers are drilling you with rules, like ways you have to format your essay and ways to write, and people get writer's block. And that paper focused on how to avoid that with being more flexible. So I think as I become a teacher, to let students know that the rules, even though they're younger, it's good to instill them with knowledge they'll need for the future, and set good habits.
Yeah.
So I focused on that because I found that most interesting this semester.
Yeah, it's like that old balance, right? With young people, is that you're kind of responsible for them in some way. So you're like, you don't go play with the fire hydrant kind of thing. But at the same time, there's you want them to be, it seems like there's something to childhood that's really important, right? Like we used to sit, and I don't know if you guys did, but like you used to sit with crayons and a piece of paper for hours and do all sorts of stuff. And that creative impulse, do you think it can be sustained your whole life in some ways?
I think it can.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think now there's not much opportunity for that, especially with the kids and the new curriculum they're following. There's no space for creativity.
Yeah.
So, by teaching English, I have, it's different.
Yeah.
Just, like I said, you're not following the same curriculum, so there is more freedom that what I learned in this semester, I can apply to that too.
Yeah, and it seems like that idea keeps coming up, right? The idea that that critical thinking and being being open to all these different ideas is kind of the key element of the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Is that the rigid rules kind of I think about it in terms of standardized testing because that's what's going on, but it's really inspiring to see a class of students that keeps coming up and saying like, we don't like the rigid rules and the standardized testing because not only do we not like it, you don't like it for a reason. You don't like it because people don't respond to it, because that's not what human beings are. That we're not just data dumps that you just put stuff in and then somehow you miraculously are a thinker.
And we all learn so differently. So I mean, now that we're going through it and seeing how maybe teachers are expecting one way from us, and because we all learn differently, we know to not do that when we become teachers.
Yeah, that's great. That's really cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so maybe Tanya can tell me a little bit about her case study. Or did you do a case study yet? Are you one of the people that didn't want to talk about their case study? Or you've done yours?
I did my case study.
What did you do it on?
I basically did it on rigid rules and writer's block.
Yeah.
And ways of basically teaching different methods, I guess.
Is writer's block something you've experienced? Yeah. And why? Like, what is that happens? Like, what? If you've written a little bit about it, like, what is writer's block?
When a writer has a hard time writing about an assignment or anything, and they just can't continue writing, or they have to go back and reread. And they just have rules, basically.
Yeah. So you're saying that it sounds like you're saying that the rules actually create writer block, in a sense, right? Because you feel like you can't write unless you put it in this particular kind of structure. Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. So did you work with students that were experiencing that problem?
Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to I had one student who she had an introduction, but she didn't know how to continue on. So I basically asked her to free write, and she had a hard time with free writing. So then I asked her, can you come up with ideas maybe that you want to talk about? And she still didn't know what to write about. So I said, why don't you just talk to me? Yeah. And she was able to just converse with me and just
I think it's sometimes hard to kind of take what's up here and not only make it come out of your mouth, but then, you know, figure out ways to put it on a page. Those are all things that, like, you're basically like, I feel like it's working out muscles in a sense, right? There's like a little bit of like, the more you do it, the more comfortable it gets. Did you guys do free writing? Was that like one of the techniques you use in this class?
Yeah.
So how does the free writing work? You just like write, or you have a prompt?
You will have, Professor Rajiv Cooper
Yeah.
basically say, I want you to write about on an idea. And so you have 5 minutes to 10 minutes to just, 5 minutes actually.
Yeah.
To just writing without letting go of your pen and just whatever comes
Keep going.
down,
Yeah.
keep going.
Like
Then,
stream of consciousness, even if you're writing about just ridiculous stuff you saw on the internet or whatever. Yeah. And it comes out. It does. Like even that ridiculous thing from the internet that you saw, that, you know, cat video or whatever, that might be a way to start a conversation. You know what I mean? That might be the key to. So I think, you know, free writing and that stream of consciousness stuff is really important. Thanks for sitting down with me. Appreciate it.
You think you can do it, Ada?
Good afternoon. Hi. What's your name?
My name is Ada Pacino.
Ada, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So what has been your experience in this class?
Wow.
I know that's kind of a big question. I'm down to that now. I'm kind of like, what was it like for you?
Before I walk into class, I think I know something. But then after a while, I find my brain is almost like blank. But now, at the end of the class, my brain's just like a graffiti. Yeah. A lot of things need to sort out.
That's great.
Yeah, because the English class is not only an English class. It's much wider involved to social justice. It's seems like very popular now. Yeah. When we go to the 101 class in 99, at the beginning, I work with this student. I'm thinking about, well, they're too young for that. Yeah. Yeah, I think they're too young. They cannot. They don't care about the issue. They had to pick a topic in that list of. Yeah. So then, but after a while, I'm thinking about the banking education. That's my case study. So I just realized that where I was from Hong Kong. So we have a Western culture in the Chinese population. Yes. So we've been always like that, has no problem. Just like keep feeding, very, very busy. Yeah. So if you see people seems like doing better math than other country, because they feel us packed with the thing almost like 2 grades. Yeah. So if you compare with the grade, it's not a fair comparison. Yeah. Because they feed you like, we do the times table like 4 years old. Yeah. So the parents will start it already. So we've been in high school too. You pack with all like Common Core. That's how I grew up. So
the Common Core. Yeah.
In here, at first, I think it doesn't matter, because if this one doesn't work, Common Core is not good. But at least, you know, like if I look back Hong Kong, at least people can learn something.
Yeah, at least that people know there is like kind of like a base of knowledge. You know, I guess that's something that could be said about Common Core. But it sounds like this class was the opposite of Common Core in a lot of ways, right?
But a long way, it is a different, because like when I grow up thinking about, okay, what will be my career? Okay, accounting. Okay, every company need accounting. Yeah. Why not? I don't like to talk, so I close the door. I just do the the number. Right. That's how I graduate. I get an accounting degree, and then I go sit for all the exam possible, and I finish all done. And then I found out I don't really like it. Yeah. As much as I think I am. So when I have a little kid, now he's 7 years old, I find I cannot quite teach him.
Yeah.
Because he born here. A lot of things seems I still little
teach him
short.
accounting. That's about it.
So then I decided to come back here. I actually graduated here in 2005, and then I transferred to CUNY. So I graduated in 2008 in accounting.
Mm-hmm.
So then I just come back last year, and the class getting better and better. I don't know because of I changed major.
Yeah,
because accounting, I never really see PhD as a professor. They might be like corporate,
right, yeah.
Company. So they're not really academically, but they're a real persons in a real workplace.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I don't really think about social justice myself, but I come back, English class is like history, social justice, and
the humanities.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, so then I can write, somehow I can write, but now a professor can find a lot of fluff from my writing. So I gotta rearrange it, and then like the first English class I have now, I like it. I really like it.
Yeah.
Really feel like learning something now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's the best thing that education can be, and I know it's kind of like a cheesy metaphor. Forgive me, but it feels like education is like a light switch. And each person is like turning on the light, and you realize, okay, the room is bigger than I thought it was. And then you realize there's another light switch, and oh my God, we're in this vast cavern. I didn't know it was that big. And then you keep turning on more lights and realizing you were in a bigger and bigger room, and realizing that everyone around you has experienced that process at different levels. So some people are walking around in a very, very small room, right? That they don't really know a whole lot about, but other people have turned on lots of the lights. So it feels like, I'll stand up for the humanities a little bit. These classes like this the best classes like this, I think, can really turn a lot of light on, and really like make you realize the room has a lot more on the walls than you thought was there. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Yeah.
Good job.
Cool.
I just want to say, I think one of my favorite classes over the course of the semester happened to be when The Observer was here, and we were talking about Ferrer, and we got into a discussion about the role between teacher and student and the nature of collaborative learning. And I remember at one point, there was an exchange where we said that there is, in a true collaborative space, there's a responsibility for the students to teach the teacher. And that's an idea that I take very seriously. And it's one of the reasons I'm here. My dad always, he has a theory, he calls it the theory of negation. And he says, what you do in life is really what you need. And so he said, a teacher is someone who needs to be taught. And I thought of that when we had that class. And, I really do want to impress upon your audience that this was a very good class, because the light switch was coming on for me all the time from my conversations with the students. And so, I feel like I was a student in a certain way over the course of the semester as well. And I'm really grateful to everyone in the room for allowing that collaboration and that space just to be there, and to kind of let our minds wander around sometimes some difficult subjects, and to always kind of take it back to something practical, that we can all, take with us when we work with all these people that we're all going to work with in the future. But I just did want to say thank you to the whole class, and I was well taught.
And I'm going to jump on it. Thank you. And I'm going to jump on Professor Rogers Cooper's thank you. And thank you all for sitting down with me. I felt this was like enormously illuminative. And to go back to that lighting metaphor, you guys were great. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it.